2022 and the changes brought to the sport aimed at improving the racing and with it make the GPs more exciting. Which is why I decided to look back at every race of the 2022 season and rank them, based on how exciting they were. The ranking will be done with a classic ranking system going from S tier all the way to D. Note that I will only rank the races themselves, which means that neither qualifying or the sprint will be taken into account, nor any off-track antics. I've also ranked each driver's and team season, which I recommend you checking out in the description below. Now then, on to the ranking. Bahrain. The season opener at Bahrain brought everything that a season opener should bring. We had close racing with a battle for the race win, drama with the late retirement of both Red Bulls, and an unexpected result with Magnussen's Haas finishing 5th. It was a great way to start the 2022 season. Simply put, it was one of the best races of the season, going straight into S tier. Saudi Arabia. The weekend was marked by the bombing near the racetrack, but the race itself also provided entertainment. A great fight between Leclerc and Max for the race win, alongside a midfield fight between the Alpines, which quickly became a season-long theme. The Saudi GP, while not as good as Bahrain, was still a good race, going into A tier. Australia. F1's return to Australia didn't end up as exciting as it could have been. Charles ran away with the race victory, as Max's Red Bull broke down early in the race. Other than a few battles in the midfield, as well as Albon's dying strategy, there isn't a lot to say about Australia. C tier. Emilia Romagna. A race in interchangeable conditions with a few midfield battles will be mainly remembered for two events. Charles Leclerc rushing into the wall with 10 laps to go, which then led to a Norris podium finish, which became the only podium for a team outside of the top 3. This race was the first time that perhaps Charles showed signs of the championship battle getting to him, as he rushed the car and made an avoidable mistake. Overall, the race was solid, although nothing to shout about, going into C tier in front of Australia. Miami. The first race in Miami was more marked and more remembered by the show that the organizer put on and the start present at the race, rather than the race itself. A late safety car bringing the field together with 10 laps to go did give an interesting finish, but the race overall was a bit boring. Miami is the first race going into D tier. Spain. The Spanish GP usually doesn't provide exciting races, but this year, thanks to the conditions faced by the drivers and the new regulations, the Spanish GP was entertaining. In the opening stages of the race, we saw Hamilton understeer into Magnussen, as well as both Sainz and Verstappen taking a trip into the gravel traps. It all looked like a pretty easy win for Leclerc until a mechanical issue forced the Monegasque driver to retire. All in all, a very solid race going into A tier behind Saudi Arabia. Monaco. Interchangeable conditions provided an extra edge to the most famous street circuit, which gave us an exciting hour and a half. As usual, Ferrari messed up their strategy, which gave their lead to the Red Bulls, who took care of business, giving Perez his first win of the season. Although today, with the allegations floating around post-Brazil, that win can now be considered controversial. On the whole, it was a great Monaco race, and it goes into B tier. Azerbaijan. It really seems like Baku is a hit or miss. The race either gives us one of the most entertaining races of the season, such as last year, or it gives us a boring one, like this year. A race where the Red Bulls ran away with the lead following the retirement of both Ferraris. Baku goes into D tier behind Miami. Canada. A race where qualifying mixed up the order early on, alongside some mechanical issues. The first part of the Canadian GP gave us overtakes left and right. While it did cool off towards the end, a safety car with a few laps to go, following one of the worst mistakes of the season, did also give us a sprint to the finish line. A sprint won by Max by less than a second. Canada's return to the F1 grid goes into B tier behind Monaco. Britain. Silverstone gave us one of the best races of the season. The race started off with a scary crash from Chinese driver Zhou, who somehow escaped the incident without any serious injuries. Following the restart, we saw an exciting fight between the Ferrari and Red Bulls, a fight from which Max had to step back as he picked up debris from the previous incident. A late safety car gave us one of the best dashes to the finish line, with 5 drivers fighting over position, ending in Sainz's first ever race win. There's no doubt about it, Silverstone goes into S tier. Austria. The Red Bull Ring once again gave us a great race, where we saw a great fight between Leclerc and Verstappen for the race win, with the Monegasque coming out on top for his last win of the season. We also saw a great midfield fight, giving us a Haas P6 and P8, another race going into S tier. France. France was marked by one of the most important moments of the 2022 championship fight. as Leclerc put his Ferrari in the wall and retiring from the lead of the race. From this point on, Max winning his second championship was never in doubt. The race itself gave us a few midfield fights and a Mercedes double podium, but overall, France, as it usually does, has to go into D tier. Hungary. The Hungarian GP marked the start of Max's dominance this season, as despite starting 10th and pirouetting during the race, he still won the race pretty comfortably. Meanwhile, the Ferraris dropped outside of the podium despite them starting 2nd and 3rd. Great midfield fights and overtakes all over the field made for a great race, going into A tier in between Spain and Saudi Arabia. Belgium. Continuing on from his race in Hungary, Max took it a step further, as after starting 14th due to engine penalties, the Dutch took the lead of the race by lap 14 and won the race by over 20 seconds in front of teammate Perez. This was perhaps Red Bull's most dominant weekend of the season, as they looked a grade above the rest of the field. Overall, the race wasn't great, even if it did start off promising with the first lap incident between Alonso and Hamilton. D tier for Belgium in front of France. Netherlands. The Dutch GP was marked by conspiracy theory and a late safety car. A strange retirement by AlphaTauri driver Yuki Tsunoda brought out the VSC, which benefited Max amongst other drivers, as he got a free pit stop. This sparked wild conspiracy theories online, stating that the AlphaTauri was ordered to stop by Red Bull to benefit Max. A late safety car, which was brought out by Bottas stopping, brought the field together, allowing Max to overtake Hamilton for the rate of the race, and the Dutch didn't look back. Overall, Zandvoort goes into C tier. Italy. Monza saw Max once again fight through the midfield to win comfortably the race. A late safety car looked like it was going to shake the field up, but there wasn't enough laps left in the race for the overtaken cars to get back in the right position, which meant that the race finished behind the safety car. D tier for the usually exciting race. Singapore. Max once again found himself further down the starting grid, starting 8th, but opposed to previous races, the Dutchman didn't fight back to win the race, as he was caught out among many other drivers by the interchangeable conditions. It was Sergio Perez who won the race in dominating fashion. The Singapore GP goes into B tier. Japan. A race marked by Max winning his second championship and horrible FIA decision, which thankfully didn't end in tragedy. The race started in treacherous conditions, which led to Sainz crashing, and with it red flagging the race. But as Pierre Gasly was trying to catch up the field, a tractor with no visible markings appeared on the track, bringing back memories of Bianchi's crash at the same track a few years earlier. The race resumed, but this didn't end the controversies, as a 5-second penalty to Leclerc and a loophole in the regulations gave Max his second title, robbing the Dutch of his deserved celebrations. Overall, the Japanese GP barely sneaks into C tier. United States. An incident-filled race with an exciting sprint to the finish line between Hamilton and Verstappen, bringing back memories of 2021's championship fight. During the race, we've also seen for the last time Vettel leading the race, which was a nice moment. Overall, the race was solid, with the US going into B tier. Mexico. As it unfortunately usually does, the Mexican GP didn't bring us an exciting race. Few overtakes here and there, with no fight for the race win. A change has to be made to the circuit, as it has yet to provide a truly great race. D tier for the Mexican GP. Brazil. An overall great weekend, the race was amongst the best of the season. On the first lap we saw pole sitter Kevin Magnussen being forced to retire, with the rest of the race being filled with overtakes and incidents, such as the coming together between Hamilton and Verstappen, once again giving back memories of 2021. The end of the race was marked by controversy, as Verstappen refused to give back his place to teammate Perez, which sparked heated reactions online, as well as the start of the Monaco qualifying theory. But the race will also be remembered for George Russell's maiden win, in a race which he completely controlled. Easy S tier for Sao Paulo. Abu Dhabi. The changes brought to the circuit were finally noticeable, as the usual boring race turned into a pretty good GP compared to the previous one. We saw great midfield fights, as well as a great strategy fight between Leclerc and Perez for a second place in the championship. A solid C tier for Abu Dhabi. Overall, the changes brought closer racing, with an exciting season, which unfortunately didn't give us an exciting title fight. And while the title fight wasn't there, we also had a lot of exciting races. And with the midfield getting closer in the upcoming seasons, I think that a few unexpected results are on the card. But what did you think of the season, and what did you think of the races and my ranking of them? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe.